16 individuals have been sentenced after a significant police crackdown dismantled a County Lands drug network that trafficked Class A drugs, including heroin and cocaine, into the northeast of England from the northwest. The major investigation, dubbed Operation Girona, was led by Northumbria Police in collaboration with the North East Regional Organised Crime Unit and other police forces across northern England. The operation uncovered the supply and distribution of around 5 kilograms of heroin and cocaine between January 2018 and September 2020, originating from Cheshire and Merseyside. The investigation revealed a well-organised criminal enterprise initially set up by offenders in the northwest who built a supply line into the northeast. This network of drug dealers based in the region worked under the direction of those higher up the chain, distributing narcotics and generating an estimated 500,000 through illegal sales. As the investigation intensified, police gathered overwhelming evidence, resulting in the arrest of key individuals in September 2020. The prosecution brought forward a solid case, leading to 14 out of the 16 charged individuals pleading guilty to a range of serious drug offences. The sentences handed down at Newcastle Crown Court totalled more than 60 years in prison, with some of the individuals receiving suspended sentences due to their level of involvement or other mitigating factors. The North East-based offenders and their sentences were as follows. Ryan Corkill, 22 of West Avenue, Merton, pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs and was sentenced to 22 months imprisonment, suspended for 18 months. Ben Heppel, 31, of Parsley Close, Easington, pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs and he was sentenced to 23 months imprisonment, suspended for 18 months. Connor Heppel, 26, of Leach Court, Peterlee, pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of heroin and was sentenced to 20 months imprisonment, suspended for 18 months. Bradley Kenny, 25, from the Durham area, pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs and was sentenced to 24 months imprisonment, suspended for 18 months. Brian Old, 52, of Wallace Gardens, Gateshead, pleaded guilty to supplying Class A drugs, possession with intent to supply heroin, and acquiring criminal property. He was sentenced to 4 years and 1 month in prison. Stephen Toward, 47, of St Cuthbert's Court, Newcastle, pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs and was sentenced to 24 months imprisonment, suspended for 18 months. Declan Williams, 24, of Thorpe Street, Easington, pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs and was sentenced to 3 years and 2 months in prison. Darren Kay, 30, from the Durham area, pleaded guilty to being concerned in the supply of Class A drugs and was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment, suspended for 18 months, and sentenced on April the 16th. The northwest-based offenders and their sentences were as follows. Luke Kane, 35, of Ulness Walton Lane, Preston, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was sentenced to 5 years and 8 months in prison. James Disley, 34, of Edenhurst Avenue, Liverpool, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Joseph Garrigos, 37, of Somerset Place, Liverpool, was found guilty of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Ryan Hardwick, 36, of Ash Priors, Widnes, Cheshire, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and to conceal criminal property and possession of criminal property. He was sentenced to 10 years and 4 months in prison. Carl Jones, 36, from Merseyside, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Serge Maudsley, 28, of Castlefield Road, Liverpool, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and possession with intent to supply heroin. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Wesley McSween, 39, of Ancroft Road, Liverpool, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and was sentenced to 5 years and 4 months in prison. Kevin Moore, 44, of Woodford Road, Liverpool, was found guilty of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs and failing to appear at court. He was sentenced to 8 years and 14 days in prison. Superintendent Jamie Pitt of Northumbria Police praised the collaborative efforts of officers and partner agencies, acknowledging the scale and complexity of the investigation. This has been an incredibly long and complex investigation, and these sentences are the culmination of hundreds of hours of painstaking work from the police officers and partners. County lands is a despicable practice which sees organised criminals seeking profit from the most vulnerable members of our communities through the sale of highly destructive substances. There is absolutely no place for this type of activity in the North East. These sentences reinforce that stance and send a clear message to those who think they can get away with this type of criminality. No matter whether you work as a courier or are a key figure within an organised criminal network, we will do everything within our power to bring you before the courts to face justice. Please like this video, please comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my crime channel. Thank you.